Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to go about tracing your logo design for your cafe. I'm going to teach you how to place the image and then how to go about tracing it with the pen tool as well as the type tool. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to set up a blank workspace like so. A4 size is recommended. It doesn't matter too much considering we're working with vectors, but an A4 page means a smaller file size, so I'd recommend that. You then go to File, you go to Place. You got to find where you've saved your image of your chosen logo design. I'm going to use the scamper that I've completed to do this. I've decided that the logo I'm going to go with is this upper right hand one, Zest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the image and then I'm going to crop it so I can really focus just on this particular design. Cool, I'm going to apply the crop. Excellent. So now I've got my design that I'm going to trace. And I'm going to make it quite large. Even though the quality might not be great, that's fine. The larger it is, the easier it'll be for me to trace. Now that I've got my image that I'm going to trace in Illustrator, what I need to do is I need to open up my layers panel. So I can use the layers icon on the right. If yours isn't there, you can go to window and go to layers and it'll open up a window like this. You create a new layer like so, and you lock layer 1. By locking layer 1, it means we can't move the image. It'll make it really easy to trace. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create 2 new layers. I'm going to have one, which I'm going to call my splat. And I'm going to have another one, so layer 3, that I'm going to call my zest or my title. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use the type tool and I'm going to create the word zest like so. I'm not going to try and trace my own. I'm going to try and find a font that might be able to do the job for me, and that way it just makes it a little bit easier for me in the long run. Plus then it uses a typeface that I can use in a range of different ways later on. So I'm going to scroll through, try and find a typeface that suits my design. Hopefully I'll be able to find one. If not, you can always go online to a website like DaFont and see if they have style of font there that you can use. Make sure that it's free to use when you do use it. This is one that I have downloaded from the DaFont called Zest. Not Zest, Daily Walker. And I actually quite like the style, even though it's not the exact same one that I've used. It's similar in that it is hand-drawn, it's kind of engaging, it's very free, it's exciting. So I'm going to use that. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to lock my Zest layer. I'm going to go to my splat layer and I'm going to try and trace this splat shape using the pen tool. So I'm going to grab my pen tool and I'm going to use a color like so, this gold, and I'm going to start at the top and I'm slowly going to trace around. We have to remember that when we use the pen tool, when we click and start, I click the last anchor point that I make. I then click and drag to create a new line, re-click the anchor point that I just made, and I continue to do this all the way around my design. So I'm going to go about tracing the splat here. You're welcome to watch in the video, or you're welcome to fast forward to the next component, which will be adding the fruit pieces and then refining the type. But I'm going to go about doing this for the next minute or so. And as you can see, as my splat is getting made, my text becomes a lot more visible. And that's what we want, especially if we're using a white typeface. I might change the color of my typeface so it stands out a little bit more than this white. But at the moment, it looks pretty decent. And these are design decisions that you can make as you adapt your design and change it and modify it. Cool. So I can see now if I turn off my layer 1, I can see how my logo is looking. Because it uses a white typeface, we can't really make out the Z or the T. So I'm going to go back to my Zest layer. I'm going to highlight this text and I'm going to choose a color that kind of matches my original. Oh, and I can see it's starting to look a lot better already. So I've got all my layers locked now. What I want to do is I want to create a layer between splat and zest, and these I'm going to call my slices, because if we turn off the splat for a second, we can see on layer 1 that they've got these apple pieces floating throughout this splat, and I want to have that connection to fruit or vegetable imagery, which is part of your design brief. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock the slices layer, and I'm going to go to that, and I'm going to use the pen tool to construct these apples. And instead of trying to create every single one individually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace one like so. So I'm going to go and use the pen tool, making sure that I close my shape by starting where I began. Change that to a more distinct and appley red. Great. And then I'm going to draw the inside of the apple, which will look a little bit kind of like a muted yellow. I'm going to connect that. And that forms my apple slice. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to select those two. So both of those objects are selected. I'm going to go to Object at the top of my screen and go to Group. And what that means is now that whenever I click one part of the design, it selects all of it. So that makes moving and copying it really easy. So what I want to do is I want to copy this slice a few times. I might resize it to create a different sense of scale and proportion in my design. So I'm readjusting these slices. I might even add some extra ones that weren't in the original, just because I feel like the font isn't as bold. So I may want to include more of these patterned elements. So another slice here, one more here. And when I'm scaling down, I'm holding down Shift to keep it in proportion. Same as when I'm rotating it, I'm holding down Shift so it rotates in 45-degree increments. You can obviously free rotate it, whatever you prefer. And I think those are all my slices. Excellent. So I can turn back on my splat layer. I can turn off my first layer, and I can start to see my logo really coming together. I still think the text could be a bit bolder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the slices layer and unlock my zest layer. I'm going to click on my title. I'm going to give it an outline. And by giving it an outline, I can actually make it a little bit bolder, a little bit more cartoony. I think that weight suits it really well. So what I've done is by using my original traced image, I've been able to trace each element of the design. So the logo, the zest, which I've replaced with a different font based on my own judgment. I've then added in those apple slices simply by drawing one and then copy and pasting it a bunch of times. And then I've drawn the splat, so our background feature. And then I could go back and potentially add little splats around the edge, or I might put some apples, further apples throughout to create a more distinct pattern. But at this point, I'm pretty happy with that design. And that is how you go about tracing your logo.